Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Mm.
Before we get into the breakdown today, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Rugby Obsession right now so you never miss an update.
Yeah, definitely subscribe. You really don't want to miss what we've got coming up.
Exactly. Because today we are getting just a phenomenal look behind the curtain. We're exploring the inner workings of World Rugby's recent Shape of the Game Summit.
And this was held in London, right?
Right, in London. And it was attended by around 200 key figures. We are working entirely from a highly detailed March 3, 2026 article from Planet Rugby.
Which is just a great source for this.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack exactly what happens when the biggest minds in rugby gather to debate the sport's future.
Right.
And we are focusing specifically on a really highly anticipated storyline here, the return of Springboks head coach Rassie Erasmus to this inner circle.
Yeah, and to really grasp the significance of this, you have to look at the context of his return.
The history there is intense.
It is. Erasmus has historically been banned by World Rugby for his, very public criticism of referees.
Right, he was totally on the outside looking in.
Exactly. He's been missing these global summits. But now he is back at the table.
Back in the room?
Right, but as an observer this time. And he didn't just show up quietly by himself.
No, not at all.
He arrived alongside this heavy-hitting South African delegation.
I mean, just look at who he brought. According to the article, he brought SA Rugby CEO Ryan Oberholzer.
A huge presence.
Plus book assistant coach Felix Jones.
Right?
And national law advisor Jocko Piper.
Which is just a fascinating group to bring.
It really is, and I think it ties perfectly into this massive shift from virtual to reality that Erasmus talked about.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he had this key realization, and he pointed it out enthusiastically. He realized it's just way too easy to get out of touch by relying on virtual calls.
Virtual calls, emails.
Right, or following people on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, and we have to analyze why that matters so much, because Erasmus specifically said he wanted to see the decision makers eye to eye. Eye to eye. Yes. And I think there's a really positive lesson for you here as a listener. In an era of complete digital overload, major global decisions still require that face-to-face human connection.
You cannot just run global sports on a Zoom call.
Exactly. You miss the nuances.
But it's funny, right? Because despite knowing he needed to be there eye to eye, he had this totally candid, relatable admission when he first arrived.
Oh, I love this part.
Right, he walks into this massive 200-person global meeting, and he thought to himself,
Ag, why did I fly here?
yes, why did I fly here?
Yeah.
Which is just so honest.
It's incredibly relatable. You take this long-haul flight, you walk into a room with 200 people, and you just immediately think, what is the point of this?
It feels like a recipe for bureaucratic gridlock.
Totally. But the article explains how the summit was actually structured, which changed his mind.
Right, they didn't just stay in that massive room.
No, it started as one giant global meeting, sure, but then it broke away into these targeted areas.
Specialized areas.
Exactly, like high performance and commercial.
So even though Erasmus is no longer on the committees running those side meetings,
Because he's just an observer now.
he still found massive, massive value in being there.
He realized he could still provide input and be heard in those smaller breakaway rooms.
Which turned his initial doubt into ultimate satisfaction by the end of it.
It's a huge shift in perspective for him.
It really is. And actually, before we get into the massive contrast in how another coach viewed this exact same event, we need to take a quick pause.
A good time for a breather.
Definitely. So if you are enjoying this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of global rugby, take a second right now to subscribe to Rugby Obsession.
Please do. We want you with us for every deep dive.
And we also want to bring you directly into this specific conversation.
Yeah, we want to hear your thoughts.
How do you feel about the behind-the-scenes politics of rugby?
Do you agree that physical meetings are fundamentally better for the sports culture than virtual ones?
Leave a comment and let us know. We really want to see where you stand on this.
Absolutely.
All right, let's jump back in. Because after the breakaway meetings finished, Erasmus offered a highly surprising fact to the press.
Something you almost never hear from him,
Right. He actually praised World Rugby.
which is a rare compliment.
Very rare. He noted that the meetings were incredibly well structured, and he felt their input was genuinely considered by the organization.
But the most revealing part was when he said the committees actually stood their ground when they should have.
Stood their ground. The phrase is so telling.
It really shows his strategic mindset. You'd think a guy who brings his CEO and a national law advisor to a meeting just wants to steamroll the committee.
Right, just demand what South Africa wants.
Exactly. But he respects that they pushed back. He knows that if a governing body just caves to whoever is loudest, the sport falls apart.
And this ties into his larger philosophy about these summits. He believes you can skip one or two of these meetings along the way.
Sure, you don't have to be at every single one.
But he has a strict rule. You never skip the meeting a year out from a World Cup.
Never. And he was very clear on why. If you miss that one, you wait for the consequences.
Wait for the consequences.
Right. Because that is when the rules, the refereeing focus areas, all of that gets locked in. If you aren't there, you suffer the consequences on the pitch later.
And he recognized that you don't get everything you want. The article notes he joked about sitting there and listening to what Fiji wants.
Which is a great example.
South Africa won't get everything, Fiji won't get everything, but ultimately, he believes it comes back to what is best for rugby.
It's a very collaborative, positive viewpoint from a traditionally intense coach.
It is. But we have to present the opposing viewpoint impartially here, because the contrast is just cynical and jarring.
It is a completely different reality.
Right. Japan head coach Eddie Jones attended the exact same summit in London, and he dubbed it a joke.
A joke and a waste of time.
A waste of time. He went on the Rugby Unity podcast and absolutely blasted it.
I mean, he complained heavily that they had way too many people in the room to make actual decisions.
Which was Erasmus's initial fear, right? Ag, why did I fly here?
Exactly. But Jones never moved past that frustration.
And I have to quote Jones directly here because it is just such a memorable detail. He said they just hold hands at the end, have a gin and tonic, so it's all good.
Hold hands and have a gin and tonic.
It's a scathing review.
It perfectly captures the difference in these two coaches. For you listening, this is a tale of two completely different philosophies on bureaucratic summits.
Completely opposed.
One coach, Erasmus, sees the immense value in planting seeds, in building culture and gaining incremental influence over time.
Even if he has to sit through massive bureaucratic sessions.
Exactly. While the other coach, Jones, is just deeply frustrated by a perceived lack of immediate action.
Jones wants a problem identified and solved instantly.
Right. He sees the relationship building and the networking as a distraction, whereas Erasmus sees it as the fundamental groundwork for the next World Cup.
It really puts the pressure on World Rugby into perspective. They are trying to govern a global sport with these massive clashing personalities in the room.
And it brings us to a really fascinating final thought for you to ponder.
Based entirely on the text, yeah.
Right, because Erasmus explicitly noted that this specific meeting focused heavily on the culture and spirit of the game.
The culture and spirit.
Yes. So if a notoriously intense coach like Rassie Erasmus is fully buying into this collaborative culture...
Just eye-to-eye diplomatic approach.
Exactly. How will that diplomatic approach actually change the way his teams perform on the field?
When those World Cup consequences finally arrive.
Right. Will this new appreciation for the spirit of the game alter their tactics or their relationship with the referees?
It is a fantastic question to leave you with. Seeing how this boardroom diplomacy impacts the actual grass-level rugby is going to be incredibly compelling to watch.
It's going to be the major storyline moving forward.
Without a doubt. Well, that brings us to the end of our breakdown of this Planet Rugby article. Before we go, please remember to hit subscribe to Rugby Obsession so you don't miss our future coverage. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.